don't even realize it. And that's what I'm trying to do too with these interviews, is to, wait, have I ever done that? Like, let's look at ourselves, which is where the change can come from, to open our eyes.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I know we had a little discussion previously before we got on camera, and you know, I look at what we are experiencing now as far as within our country, and one thing that you said earlier is that it took a moment for you to experience your white privilege. I guess my question would be to you as a white woman, what is white privilege?
I thought you were going to do it.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, white privilege is, I've heard it explained like this. White people don't have obstacles in front of them the same way that black people do. So starting really actually at birth, black people have a higher, or African Americans or people of color have a higher infant mortality rate than white people. So right off the bat, there's injustice. And then it just continues forever. So lots of blacks they don't get the same advantages as the white people do. We don't have to work as hard to get to our goals where black people do. And the system is designed that way. So I don't have to experience the same thing that people of color experience. Not to say I'm not working hard to do things or that they aren't, but they are going to encounter way more obstacles. It's going to be much harder. So just by that, I get more and they get less. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. No, that's.
I mean, there's like a billion things that could be, but I also right now there's lots of great informational videos and memes and quotes and all kinds of things that are opening people's eyes. And there was one that I saw, which maybe you've seen too, Twitch from the Ellen DeGeneres show did the white privilege, put your hands down. Did you see that?
Right, yeah.
And so she's still holding her 10 fingers and he doesn't have any fingers left because he encountered much different things in his experiences than she did. And the only finger that she put down was put your finger down if you've had to talk to your children about being killed. And I think it said by a police officer. And she has a son with him, so she put her finger down. The rest of them she didn't have. So that's the differences, is there's more things that happen to people of color that don't even get experienced. Never maybe even would occur to us that those are the privileges. So those are the things. And the things are like, so the list is exponential, basically.
Thank you appreciate you sharing your experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think personally, when you talk about privilege, when you talk about challenges, some people on both ends of the spectrum may be oblivious to their challenges or their privilege. But at some point, which we had the conversation earlier, that we become aware of our privilege, and our privilege, white privilege can become an eye-opening experience to where you see not only your privilege, but now you see other people's challenges. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So definitely, thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And I've definitely been a recipient of white privilege my whole entire life, 100%. But I never knew that. That was never even anything in my mind ever until at least I was in the double digits in age, but like probably more my latter years. And so never even in the realm. Again, I'm from Clovis, where it's predominantly white. I have to actively this might sound bad, but this is my experience. I would have to actively look to find a black person in Clovis. That's how few and far between they are.
Right.
So it was just never on my radar.
Right.
So it was something that I just have. When you live in a world of blinders, you can't see stuff.
Right.
And I didn't see it.
Yeah. Right. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I know I snuck that on you.
No.
I snuck that question on
I
you.
know.
But thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely. What else? What you got? You got something for me?
Things.
Come on, let's go. We can shoot from the hip.
What? Okay. So you went to Fresno State.
Yeah.
Because one thing I'm also trying to do is let's share what's happening here.
Okay.
So
in Fresno.
Or
in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, you said let's shoot from the hip.
Well,
Let's bring it home.
I mean, hey, I'm here. I mean, I know there are some things that I've experienced here that I've never experienced back home. I'm originally from Los Angeles.
Thanks.
I'm originally from Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, the Crenshaw district, where it's predominantly black.
Yeah.
It's predominantly black people.
And how long did you live there for?
My whole life.
Okay.
I was born and raised. Then I moved here to Fresno when I was 17, 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So about 18 years. And then came here to Fresno.
Okay.
Now my experience here was totally different because the culture was totally different.
Okay.
Right. The demographic of people were totally different.
Yeah.
So yeah, my experience was definitely eye-opening when I came here. I didn't know that the Clovis and Fresno was such a divide until maybe I left college and came back. Yeah, I mean, we knew I knew Clovis, of course. Old Town Clovis. I knew Clovis. I knew about it, but I didn't know how, I guess, segregated Clovis and Fresno truly are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So yeah, my experience in Fresno has been, and I have a lot of. I coached at Clovis.
Yeah.
I coached at Clark Intermediate.
You coached football.
Football. I coached in Clovis. I still coach in Clovis. I have a lot of people who own businesses. I know a lot of people who own businesses in Clovis. So I mean, there's no bash on it, but there's definitely you can definitely see the difference.
And you can feel it, or
Clovis does not want to be, and this is my perspective.
Yeah, please.
This is my perspective. I've started to realize, I look at Fresno as Sanger, Clovis, Fresno, from Hanford. I mean, I know Hanford's a little far out, but Clovis in the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, Fresno in the whole, the valley. But Fresno and Clovis be so close to each other. It's like, no, we're not. We don't. Our street signs are brown. You know what I mean? Yeah. Our street signs are brown. No, we don't want anything to do with it.
Okay, so
I get it,
a lot of people don't actually even realize this who live here.
Yeah.
So will you say what you're talking about?
Yeah, so I think, so there's a point, I want to say, Herndon and Willow, or Willow. Like Willow, when you get to Willow, everything east of Willow, the street signs turn brown.
And is there a picture of something on the street sign too?
I don't know.
I feel like there's a cowboy on there.
Really?
I feel like. I could be wrong.
It could be.
I feel like definitely in Old Town Clovis.
It might be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
okay, but in Fresno they're what color?
Green.
Yeah. So we have different.
Yeah. It
true.
stops here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I understand it. Different cities, but also you see within the different cities, you see the different demographic of people.
Yes.
Clovis is predominantly white.
Yeah.
Right. Fresno, everything east of Willow, is predominantly people of color. You just get a mixture of. You get more of a melting pot. Yeah. From that side on. Yeah. So you definitely can feel and understand. You see this, and you see the money. Mm-hmm. You see where the money is. Yeah. So when you talk about, systemic patterns or racism or segregation, you see the resources and the opportunity usually goes where the money goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you look at the opportunity or the resources, just say, if you take color out of it, you say, look at Clovis, look at Fresno, look at the opportunity, right? Look at the structure, and then you say, okay, well, who lives in Clovis?
Mm-hmm.
Predominantly white people. You say, who lives in Fresno? You get a bigger melting pot, right? But so you could just see and feel the segregation from this side to that side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's a reflection of a systemic system, a systemic prejudice, economic system, or mentality. So definitely still present.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely still present. Absolutely. Yeah.
And can you talk to us about your experience? Because you said it was so different in Fresno when you got here. What was it like in Crenshaw when you grew up there?
It was fun. I'll say that. My family was there. I guess I'm just kind of trying to think on a level of, when you talk about the cultures, different cultures, and every culture is different, right? And I don't think one culture is better than the other, right? But just culturally, things are just different. So when I grew up, it was very family oriented. I'm very family oriented. A lot of the people that I grew up with were in, an X amount of mile radius. So we grew up together. We went to high school together. Friends become family. It was a little more family oriented. I would say that, right? And of
it
course,
sounds like a tighter community.
It was a
of
very
friends become family.
Absolutely.
And you all know each other.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was my experience growing up in that neighborhood, and of course, coming to Fresno. I mean, it's a new environment.
Yeah.
So of course, it's like you have to now adapt. You now have to learn how to adapt to new environments, and that's what it was. It was just learning how to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you, as we were talking earlier, you've lived in different places.
Mm-hmm.
So you lived in Crenshaw, in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You lived in Fresno. You left Fresno to go to
Buffalo.
Okay, Buffalo, New York.
Yep, Indianapolis. Indiana, Pittsburgh, and also in Toronto.
Okay.
Canada. Yeah.
So you have lived in some big spots, different places.
Absolutely.
What would you say your experience what was the differences in all those places?
Like I said, every.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like every of course every city has its own identity, and I think that's based on the histories of those cities. So every city I went to definitely had a different feel. You got a East Coast, you got a Pittsburgh on the east. You have Indiana. You got Buffalo. Everything was really on the east, but Buffalo was a little slower. Orchard Park was a little more laid back. I didn't get the political vibe. I really wasn't aware of politics in that way and the culture of politics when I was actually going through my NFL stint. But I was more so just in tune with just how the city moved. One city was slower than the other, a little more fast-paced. I think Pittsburgh was a little more fast-paced than Indiana and Buffalo, but Toronto was by far the best city that I've ever been to, and it was very culturally diverse. One thing that I really enjoyed about Toronto was a lot of people over there, I believe, were like second, third generation. So if you were to ask someone, where are you from? They would say, my mother's from Portugal and, my father's from Senegal, or, my mother's from Jamaica and my father's from Australia, right? So it was really cool because they were able to identify some roots, and I thought that was really cool. You know, and they're like, well, where are you from? I'm like, well, California. You know, I'm from Los Angeles, California. So, you know, it really opened my eyes to, I just thought it was interesting. I thought Toronto was a huge melting pot. You know, you saw a lot of Indian police up there. You got a little bit of everything. You got a little bit of everything. And I enjoyed it.
Cool.
Really did. Yeah.
I've never been, so.
Put it on your bucket list.
Okay.
For sure.
It's close enough, I should.
There you go.
You talked about police.
Yes.
Have you ever had any experience with police?
Have I ever? I've had a lot of experience with police. Yeah, I haven't been arrested. But I've been pulled over countless of times. Go ahead.
So my last interview.
I'm like giving away my record. I don't have.
No, please don't. And I do want you to continue, but my last interview that I did, my first one, my interviewee said, you know, I always wonder when I get pulled over, what do the cops ask a white person? And he shared what the cops ask him, and he said one of the first questions they ask him is, are you on probation or parole? Do you ever get asked that question?
I haven't got asked that question. Well, I would say this. I'm sure I have got asked that question, like in high school when you're rolling, driving in the car, 3-4 deep, with your friends, 11, 12 at night after a football game. You coming from Denny's, everybody hanging out, and you get pulled over. Yeah, I've been in those situations. And that's why my mom put a curfew on us. She's like, look, y'all gotta be in the house by this time. But yeah, no, I think more so now I understand the tension between African Americans and police. There are some police officers that you feel the tension with them, and as an African American, as a black man, the first thought is, this dude is doing this because I'm black. Like, why is he giving me a hard time? But the history between African Americans and the police. We're seeing it right before our eyes.
Now, is this, when you say you know the history, I know you're educated and know the history. Do you feel everyone as a whole knows the history?
I believe everybody is getting a front row seat to historically what's been happening, right? The most recent one we've seen with George Floyd, there's no way you can deny that what that man did was wrong. And there's no way that you can deny that his fellow officers not interjecting and saying, hey, that's enough. There's no way that you can say that that's not wrong. You know what I mean? So do I know the extent, the numbers, the in-depth detail of the history with law enforcement and the general population, specifically African Americans? No. But I know I know what I've seen. I know historically laws that have been put in place. Specifically, at one time, you think about the 60s. At what point, black men, we couldn't even look at white women at one point. I asked some of the kids I worked with, do you know who Emmett Till is? No, right? Was beat down. It wasn't by a police officer, but it was the fact that the killings of young black people are still happening, right? So you see that's what's happening before us right now. I don't think
and
that.
For anyone who doesn't know Emmett Till, who you said the police didn't do it, who did do it?
I believe it was the husband of the woman who, and I can't even remember the in-depth story, but it was Emmett Till looked at her, must have said something to her. This was during the Jim Crow era, and it was, she reported it or she said something. I can't remember in depth who exactly it was.
Yeah, but it wasn't the police. It was just like so this is.
And I'm gonna go back and look at the story now that you asked me. You know what I mean? But it was to the extent of what's wrong is wrong, right? For you to kill somebody based on the fact that he looked at you or the color of your skin, like you know what I mean, or talk to you.
Yeah, right.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
So you asked me, do we know the history? I don't think a lot of us know the history.
And do you know if he was sentenced or not?
I don't know.
Okay.
That was a good question for me to know now. No, that's a really good question. Do you know?
I don't think he was, but I wouldn't bet my life on it.
Right. And I think that's a lot of, for me, as I'm learning this, what I'm learning is that's a lot of the problem that we're seeing, right? When we say Black Lives Matter. You see someone like a George Floyd, you see someone, and I don't remember the cop's name, I don't want to know his name, but you see someone like that cop kill somebody, and you see it happening over and over, but no consequences are being administered.
It's been 3 months. Was it 3 months?
Was it 3 months? Has it been 3 months?
Almost.
No.
It's been way too long.
Really? I don't know how much.
Maybe it's not 3 months.
I don't think it's been that long.
Okay, it's been too long.
But but knowing that when you see this happening, of course people are going to say Black Lives Matter, because if your job is to uphold the law and you're unlawfully killing black young men and saying, "Oh, I fear for my life." In this case, he didn't say he feared for his life, so there's no way around. I just feel like there's no way around that. So you keep seeing it, and now it's like, okay, well, you're letting these people off. So you're telling me that black life didn't matter? Is that what you're telling me? That this man can kill this person and walk free? Mm-hmm. So what you're telling me in essence is that life doesn't matter. Right? So that's when I see the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like, no, we're saying that person's life matter. Like, that person has to suffer a consequence because that life mattered. Mm-hmm. That life mattered. Mm-hmm. So to see these men suffer or have to deal with the consequence of their action, it's right. It's only right. Mm-hmm. Only right. Mm-hmm. It's only right. I'm sorry, I can go.
No. Don't apologize. Yeah. I want you to go.
Absolutely.
I want to. This is where the change happens, is by talking about this.
I agree.
Right? Like, we have to educate, we have to learn, we have to unlearn, and we have to change.
Yeah.
So please talk about it.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree.
So you worked at Clark.
I did.
And any experiences there you want to share about?
I had a couple experiences. I don't want to share. I believe Clark. I don't know if we're gonna show this. But between you and I.
Well, if you don't want to share, then don't share.
Yeah. No, like Clark. I had a good experience at Clark. Mm-hmm. I had a good experience at Clark. The principal there was great. Teresa, the AD there was great. So I had a good experience, but definitely. Being in Clovis has definitely opened my eyes to, a few. You're black when you're in Clovis. I'll just say that. You know you're black when you're in Clovis. Mm-hmm. But no, I've Clark was good to me.
Good.
Person.
Yeah. And you're speaking from an administrator, from the teacher coach role, not from the student role.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so recently, with what happened at the Buchanan in Clovis, mm-hmm. The student that shared these awful, atrocious, despicable, don't even know what we call them, things. Yeah. And what are your thoughts about that?
Just in a little detail that we've talked about. Just ignorant. What the kid has been putting out. I'm at the point now to where it's like, man, that stuff it doesn't bother me personally. When I say it doesn't bother me, it's ignorant, and I believe that person, whoever was putting out these racial slurs, that they definitely should have some sort of consequence. Definitely should have some sort of consequence, because otherwise, you will not just that person, but other people who may feel the same way may believe it's okay, and it's something that will be tolerated opposed to not tolerated. So first of all, that kids' parents need to check them unless they're on the same on the same agenda. You know what I mean? But if that's not fixed in house, then it's coming from in house, and something I think from a higher up perspective, definitely something needs to be done about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think this is an opportunity to change?
I do. Just like you see those police officers get charged.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's an opportunity to say, no, we won't tolerate it.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity presented to you to put your stake in the ground and say, this is not right.
Right.
So, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. It's a huge opportunity for change.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So much stuff. So you were in the NFL.
Yeah.
And some stuff has happened, I think, recently with not being on board with kneeling, and then maybe it's okay, and it's different players having different opinions at different times.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Oh man, I'm trying to be as politically correct as I possibly can.
I don't want you to be PC. I want you to talk.
But I think the thing when you're talking about being politically correct and being open and vulnerable and just telling what it's like, you have to be okay with what comes with that.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm at the place now to where I have always been on board with Kaepernick, with his peaceful protest. I played against Kaepernick at Fresno State. I have been on board with his peaceful protest since day one. He, like a Tommy Smith, took his platform and utilized it for something greater than himself. And personally, I believe it is a bold, courageous act of selflessness. I'm all for it. I'm always all for it. I know I've had a lot of good conversation about people who feel that Kaepernick is protesting against the flag.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather served. My father served in the military. So I have people who have serviced this country in my family. So by no way do I believe, and after having those conversations, if I were to do the same thing, it would not be in disrespect to my family or to my service members. Mm-hmm. It was more of a peaceful protest to get people's attention. Mm-hmm. Because now you're asking me, why am I kneeling? Mm-hmm. And now I get to tell you in the powerful media that what is happening, the inequality, the disparities between black and white, the economic disparity between black and white, the unequal, the justice between black and white, or the injustices, but solely that are happening against black people in general, it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was a bold move to be able to use this platform.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with disrespecting the flag.
Yeah.
But there are people who stand on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And that's their right.
And so my husband follows sports, not as much as we'd like to because we have 2 small children, but so he was relaying to me, basically I think it was like they weren't they obviously, Kaepernick didn't get to play anymore, they basically kicked him out of the NFL,
Right.
Along with other men as players as well. But now they're like, oh, we see it now. We should we acknowledge, and you're allowed to do this peaceful protest. Is this what you're taking? Again, I didn't see this as a secondhand information from my husband who does follow sports.
I saw something on the way over here. I didn't read it in depth, but I mean, they're going to if a team is going to pick him up, then. Because when you're talking about the NFL, the way that business works is, I can release you from your contract at any day, and if anybody else in the organization, the nonprofit, doesn't pick you up, then that's their decision.
Yeah.
So of course, then nobody wanted to pick him up. But yeah, I don't. If I would love to see him play again. Me personally,
Yeah.
I think it'll be a bold statement. I think it'll be a bold statement by any team who desires to pick him up. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I also wanted to. I heard so a lot of people's why they don't support Kaepernick is all the men and all the women that have died for this country. Mm-hmm. You're putting them down, for lack of another word. Mm-hmm. But I've heard from military people, which I won't name here because I didn't ask their permission, but they say that's what we fight for, is for you to share and to protest. Mm-hmm. That's why we go to war, so that as America, you can have a voice. Mm-hmm. Whatever your voice is, that's what we're defending as America. So I just wanted to share that I thought that's the opposite side from people who have served. They're like, that's why we're doing this.
Absolutely.
So that we can have freedom.
Absolutely.
The freedom to share whatever it is that you're protesting.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. And I can see it, it'll be definitely different. If he was very blatant about, we say salute the troops. If he's like, F this, F that, and I just posted an interview on my Instagram to where he proudly and boldly just talked about his stance and why he did it.
Yeah.
And it was very much about to bring awareness to the inequality and the unjust system that is surrounding African Americans in general. So I think it was a bold move. It was a way to gain awareness. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a way to gain awareness. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you. So it's a lot because it's twofold. I'll say this. The position that I'm in now, it's forcing me to learn. It's forcing me to learn history. It's forcing me to learn laws. It's forcing me to learn who I am. This 2020 COVID, now we're here, with the protests that are going on around the world. It's forcing me to dive deeper into what is it that I want to see changed in this world. Mm-hmm. We're here marching for change, and I'm proud of the world because you see people from New Zealand, you see people from Australia, you see people in Paris, right here in Fresno and LA, you see people in New York, you see people all over the world.
Even the small cities that aren't being broadcast on the media.
We don't even know.
Yeah.
We see them all over the world standing up and saying, one, Black Lives Matter, and what is happening, what we saw. If this is how things are being ran, something needs to change.
Amen.
Something needs to change. So it's really putting me in a position to say, okay, Isaiah, what is it that you want to see changed? And I think that's something that we all have to ask ourselves as we continue to protest, as we continue to support each other, Black lives, as we continue to stand for what's right and stand against what's wrong. I think we all have to continue to ask ourselves, what is it exactly do we want to see change?
Mm-hmm.
And then our leaders, as we pray for our leaders, that they continue to help put us in position, provide us with platforms and resources to be able to execute strategic change. And I think that is where my heart has been and my focus has been these last couple of days. It's I'm standing. I've been to 2 or 3 protests already, but definitely looking ahead forward, thinking, what do I want to see change?
I think that's a great thing that we can all be asking ourselves. Not just people of color, people who aren't everyone. Mm-hmm. We can all, just like New Year's resolutions, but we need to ask it right now when it matters the most. I agree. And what does that look like?
What does that look like?
What are the actionable measures that can make that, if whatever my said change goal is, what do I need to do to get that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree. I'm trying to do the same. I'm trying to learn more,
Mm-hmm.
hear more, share more.
Mm-hmm.
So we can all do that.
Absolutely.
Within our families, friendships.
Absolutely.
Get uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have my neighbors next to me are an older white couple and really great people. We've been in my house for the last couple of years and gotten to know them over the last few years. And the wife came out one day and we were just talking and we parted ways. And the next day, her and her husband were outside and she came to me and she was like, you know what, I'm sorry, but I didn't know how to ask you how you felt because I know it's uncomfortable. And, we really got to sit down and have dialogue in that discomfort. And, I think that's one of if you don't know where to start, I think that's a good place to start. Get uncomfortable, like you said.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying go out here and you know what I mean? Like, whatever. Don't make a big deal. Don't make a show of it because the change is going to happen here. You got to be able to change in your heart first. And that's uncomfortable. Yeah. That's uncomfortable. So, definitely the change starts when you continue to get uncomfortable. That's what growth happens.
And have the courage to acknowledge if you were wrong and the courage to change. And just because we believed or felt one way, for however many years of our life doesn't mean we have to stay that way. As humans, we're meant to evolve. Yep. And we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we learned a new truth and didn't acknowledge or allow ourselves to change and evolve. So I think that we have to be able to say, it's okay to say, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I wasn't right. And then move forward from that.
Absolutely.
And I love that she was brave enough that she came out and said that to you.
Man, likewise. It was a beautiful thing.
That sounds beautiful.
It was beautiful. So, I'm encouraged. I'm definitely encouraged in this time, Liz. Meeting with pastors, black pastors, white pastors. I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged because I'm starting to see the unity. Now we might have a little, turmoil here and there, because we all come from different experiences. So you as a white woman may not fully understand what it. You won't.
Yeah, totally.
You will never. Know what it means to be a black man.
Yeah.
right?
Never.
I tell people all the time, like, I can tell you how great it felt to play in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But unless you actually put a helmet on and went out there to play in the NFL, you will never know.
Mm-hmm.
You will be living through my experience, what I tell you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's the same thing as I think as we continue, we have different walks of life. You know what I mean?
That's a great one.
You may not know, but at the same time, you know I played in the NFL, right?
Yep.
And when I say, hey, this is what it's like to play in the NFL, I'm sure you're like, man, that's real.
Yeah.
That's true, because he did that. Right? Like, that's true. So if I say, hey, this is what it's like for me as a black man in America, don't look at me and say, well, I don't agree.
Yes.
I don't really agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't. So, because now what you're doing is diminishing my experience.
And saying it didn't happen.
Don't diminish my truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because nobody can tell me that I didn't play in the NFL. Right?
Right.
Nobody can tell me this was not my experience in the NFL. So I use that analogy to say, hey, if I'm coming to you or we're talking, we're having this uncomfortable conversation that you may not agree with, right? From my perspective, I'm not asking you to agree with my perspective for one.
Yes. Yes.
But don't diminish or discard my perspective because it's not your truth.
Yes.
And I think that's where us as people must learn to first try to understand opposed to being understood. Mm-hmm. Like the little kid we talked about doing all that stuff. Yeah. Like, look, that don't bother me because wherever that boy is, that's where he is. And that person needs to be held accountable. But me talking to him is not going to change his mind.
I don't agree with you on these things. I'm trying to let you share, but I just want to make it a statement now. I don't agree with you.
Okay.
I don't need to share my opinion.
Okay.
But I just don't agree.
Okay, you don't have to share your opinion, but
because I want it to be about you and your experiences. I don't want to take.
But I want to know in what aspect you say you don't agree with. You don't have to go into why you don't, but what don't you?
When you say it doesn't matter, I feel deeply that it does matter.
That it doesn't. What doesn't matter?
Oh, like when you're like, it doesn't affect me, and like it doesn't so much matter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that someone doing that does matter.
Okay.
And I think that I'm not saying he can be changed, but people can change. And and so people can once be even like blatantly racist, which he was. Mm-hmm. But you can evolve. You can change. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's just ignorant.
Agreed.
Maybe in his. I didn't want to talk about this. Maybe he's hearing all of this, mm-hmm. and he has. I don't want to talk about it because I've also put this out there for other people because I just want to share the information, but I also don't agree. I think he should. My closing statement is this is where the change is.
Okay.
And it needs to be demonstrated and executed right now, not 10 years down the road, especially for Clovis. We need to speak louder and change this. And it highly disturbs me.
Okay. No, that's and I understand what you're saying that when I say it doesn't affect me, in some manner it does. In some manner it does because one, he's talking about when I say my people who look like me. Mm-hmm. In essence, if you were to see me, that's how he would see me. Mm-hmm. That's how he looks at me. Mm-hmm. So I understand that, and I think in my experience, that is the looming cloud of darkness that we have been experiencing is that mindset that he's demonstrating, and that's why we're here today because of that looming cloud, that mindset that people have towards one another. So I in essence, I definitely agree with you. Yes, that's a good closing statement, by the way.
Thanks.
That was strong.
I feel really strong about
That
it.
was strong.
But
That was
trying
good.
to
No, you did
share
good.
information.
Yeah, no, you did good.
But I couldn't. I'd have to share that I didn't agree with you.
That's fine. That's good. That's why we're at the table.
Okay.
Disagreements are good. I like that. I like that. I like that.
Awesome.
Anything else? We good? You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think you shared a lot of really wonderful things. You're like, it's time for bed.
I did. I said a lot.
I just want to say thank you.
Absolutely.
Again, so much for being here and just sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I want to recommend a book.
Yes,
It's,
please.
It's called Divided by Faith.
Okay.
I just started reading it. I haven't.
Oh, you haven't even finished it yet?
I haven't finished it yet. I haven't finished it
Okay.
yet.
Is this okay?
It's called Divided by Faith. I'll get you the author.
Okay.
But if you want to listen to it, I don't know how some people like to listen. But
Yeah.
I think it's a good book. Just good information.
Okay.
Good perspective.
Thanks.
Good perspective.
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Because you said like now's the time to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you're like, if you don't know, this is this I learned a lot from this. Is there anything else?
You know, I wrote a sign the other day that said, you know, there's power in your blackness. Right, because I think a lot of times, we get caught up in what other people may say about us, or because the word says that life and death are in the power of the tongue, right? And that we have very little, I would say, models to model after. We have a few, but you know, when we see wealth, when we see greatness, when we see things that we may subjectively look at and say this is good, you know, you have to go to Clovis to see that, you know.
And what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is, look at Buchanan High. Look how much money has been put. Just look how much has been invested into that school. It's a beautiful school, right? But you can see where the power and the wealth lies, right? And as you talk about the wealth gap and the wealth disparity, people say, well, you can pull yourself up by the bootstraps and, you know, you can do this. And I believe that, yes, we all have an opportunity to become something great, because I do believe that we were all made in the image of God. So greatness, I believe, is in each and every one of us. But also we live in the natural, and we live in America where it's a capitalistic society to where the dollar is very commanding. But as you see the disparity between one race and another, so one race may look at another, and one side may look at another side and say, well, I want that, but I can't get it here, so I have to go over there and get it. You see what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And then, you know, so I say that there's power in your blackness is because, yes, there are resources there, but you don't have to acquiesce or assimilate to somebody or something you're not to be great.
Yeah.
Right? The greatness is internal. So, you know, I say, you know, there's power in your blackness because just speaking life into Black people, speaking life into young men and women, I believe that's uplifting because now they see themselves as something powerful. They see themselves as someone who is worthy, that they don't have to be or look like somebody else in order to feel that worth. So definitely, I continue to encourage my community to continue to encourage their community. You know what I mean? So yeah, that for me is been big, and I'm proud to be Black. I'm proud to be from Los Angeles, California. I'm proud to be an individual who is sold on his Blackness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think for a long time for me, Liz, I thought I had to act a certain way or be something that, if I don't act white when I'm in the white neighborhood or when I'm at the white school, then I'm not accepted. So I have to act appropriately. But I understand code switching. I get all that. I get, representation. I get it all. But I'll say this, that there's power in your Blackness. Continue to affirm yourself. Continue to affirm one another. Continue to speak life into one another. And it starts with us. I believe it starts with the individual. Greatness is a mindset. Wealth is a mindset. And it starts with you. It starts with you. I think that's it.
Power in your
Is
Blackness.
that good?
I love it.
Power in your Blackness. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's see. Signing off.
We did an hour? That was a good hour.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, it is.